So there's an issue if the filter is wet and it freezes, the expansion and contraction of the water can damage the filter. Yeah.
Can I ask a question about fluoride?
Fluoride?
Yeah.
Sure.
Like my well has massive amounts of fluoride.
Uh-huh.
And so it has to be reverse osmosis. Is there any system that works for fluoride?
No, not that I know.
Okay.
Need to remove it? So it's bigger than the microns?
I don't know the size of a fluoride molecule. I don't know if this would filter out fluoride or not. This is not the tool you'd want to use for all of your sources. She had a perfectly good solution that she's using reverse osmosis for the everyday. And when you're in an emergency water situation, the fluoride isn't great, but it's not what you should be afraid of.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to share that we have a slightly larger one than that we use for backpacking.
Yep.
And it's a little more expensive, but it's super fast and
Yep.
really easy.
Right, exactly. Yep. Okay, so, yes, Bob.
Previous picture, how do you know if your source like that is good to start with? I mean,
Oh, you assume it isn't?
Okay, but you use your filter. Do you trust it then?
Yes,
No matter what that water in that pond looks like, you would trust it.
yes.
Really? Okay.
I just drank from that, and that's the water from the runoff
This
here.
water.
That's literally
From
right
the pond, right
outside.
out there.
That's, yeah.
Fresh water, not.
So keep an eye on
Yeah, 24 hours.
Unless it's
I would.
chemically contaminated, like fluoride, like then you'd need a chemical treatment in order to completely because it's dissolved into the water. It's not a thing you're trying to take out, but it's now becomes part of the water. Those will take out every critter except for viruses.
Yeah. So this is not a substitute, this is not effective with seawater. This is effective with fresh water. But the level of contaminant in fresh water, this is gonna make any of those water sources viable.
Wow.
Okay. However, we're moving to the next step, okay? Because even doing that, what I showed you, I'm going here, okay, as another treatment option. Chemical is on the list. This is simple household bleach, 6%, okay? You know, it's what, $2 at the store. So I keep this in the cupboard with my treated water. Okay, so when that is expired or used up, then I can treat the other stuff. And what I will do, there's the formula is here, but the reality is, and the easy way to remember is, we take a 1/4 teaspoon into a gallon of water.
Oh, cat fell.
Thank you, Pete. 30 minutes. Good to go.
So that you could take the pond water.
I would use more than a 1/4 cup with that. What I'm suggesting is a 1/4 teaspoon. Thank you for the unit. People are listening. This is awesome. So I would filter, but I would filter into a secondary container, and then I would chlorinate. Why not have the redundancy? You know.
So before you talked about those, the UV,
Yes.
is that out of experience in testing them, or there's no way of testing it to know if it works? That doesn't tell me what you're
So
saying about.
yeah, as
That's what
a water
that's actually doing, isn't
system,
it?
as a water system manager, I'm well familiar with the fact that some water systems use UV to treat their water. Okay, they use a lot of UV. I'm stunned that this little handheld thing with a battery is going to have the energy in it to complete the treatment. And I will accept that it's effective for a period of time, but you know, I guess you're stocking batteries. How much can a little handheld UV thing treat? I'm going for the lower tech in my choices for emergency management. Okay, that's my sense. Okay, so I mentioned the bleach. Now, you have water stored in your house that you don't know about.
Water heater.
Absolutely, okay? But let's see, how many people in the room follow the manufacturer's recommendation and flush out their water heater every year?
Put your hand down.
Look at Jenna, she's poking Lee going, see, I told you were supposed to be doing that. Paul said you should be doing this.
It's continuously being recirculated, it's just stuff on the bottom collects a little bit.
Exactly, but it's, where's he hooking up to draw the water out of the hot water heater? Off the very bottom. I tell you what, I do flush mine out, and it's got some color in it, you know? And the longer it's been sitting there, the worse it'll be, and it'd be nice to know, hey, that's actually there. But the manufacturer's not doing it to recommend for your emergency water source, but it's to make your water heater last longer. So there's a double benefit there. But again, when you go, I've got nothing, well, no, you've got 80 gallons sitting right there in that hot water heater, okay? You can access it. You've got 3 gallons in the back of every one of your toilet tanks. Now, that was potable water when it went in there. It's not coming out of the bowl, you know? So, again, I'd chlorinate it. I'd filter it maybe, you know? But it's a resource that's there. Okay. Yes, sir?
What do you do with the water that you stored for 6 months or a year? Is that gone? You throw it away?
You put Clorox in it.
Sure. The question is, when I want to dispose of the water that I've had stored for a while, what do I do with it? His bubble bath.
Is there anything you?
I wish I'm not a plant person, so it actually just goes out in the yard. Yes.
If you're getting water from a hot water tank, is there anything you need to do prior to tapping into it to make sure contaminated water doesn't come in from somewhere else in the system? Is there like a shut-off valve or anything that needs to be addressed?
You have a shut-off valve probably on the top of your tank. That's a reasonable question. I'm guessing by the time you're getting to the hot water heater, that you probably drained the water out of your pipes from everywhere else. You know, and so you're not dealing with a pressurized vessel at that point. But the larger concern, again, mitigated by filter or chlorine, is you're getting that out of the tank, and the tank's pretty clean, but what are you using to get it out of the tank? And it's going to be some kind of hose. And I'm guessing that there's only a couple people in this room who have hoses set aside exclusively for use with potable water.
Well, I'm wondering too, like if I'm taking water out of the tank and new water can replace it,
Yeah.
that is potentially contaminated, how can I avoid contaminating what I do have in there? If I take 2 gallons out and put 2 new gallons of contaminated water in that 80,
Yeah.
is it as simple as turning off a shut-off valve?
Yes. There should be a valve at the top of the tank. And it'll be confusing. You need to look closely at the top of the tank. Most hot water heaters are labeled, this pipe is in, and this pipe is out. You know, and there's usually a valve on both of them. You want to close the in one, obviously. Yep. All right. I thought this was a really pretty clever way of storing water. And so, you know, the most popular vehicle in the nation is pickup trucks, so lots of us have them. And the idea that I have a water tank that holds 250 or 300 gallons of water, and I store water in that on my property, but then when it's empty and the emergency is still persisting, I have the option to maybe go out and try to get into town and pick up water from Eastsound Water, which will be the first water system that's back in business, hopefully, or whatever. But the point is that it's multi-purpose, because your storage tank that's 250 gallons is in your closet, it's not so easy. This is made specifically to be filled and then to be moved, and you obviously once it's in your bed and it's got water in it, you're stuck with it there. You're not lifting it out, but you got water, you know, so.
I had a friend who went down to Mexico,
Yep.
and the bottom of the back of the truck, they found water containers.
Mhm.
So they'd have it when they got there.
Okay. So this is the system that Pete and I have at our house, okay? So we have a well, just like everybody else, okay? But that well doesn't pump to the house. That well pumps to two 1,250 gallon tanks, okay? And that water is sitting there, and those are full all the time. And then when we need water in the house, there's a pressure tank that provides the pressure into the house. So I'm pumping water twice. You know, there's a cost to that. But I've got 2,500 gallons of storage on my site, and it's constantly being refreshed by the amount of water that we are using every day. And what do we do every once in a while? We go out and we drop a cup of bleach into the thing. Doesn't need it probably, but why not? And so we have a significant volume of water that doesn't need to be managed or refreshed all the time. It's there waiting for us whenever we need it. Okay. But there's a better way still. Okay? So if you pumped it from your well, and you potentially had backup power by a solar or whatever, and you pumped it uphill, and lots of us have properties that have elevation variations on it. If you could put your water storage tank 80 feet above your house, you'll have roughly 40 psi of water pressure in your home all the time, power or no power. Gravity is providing. You're not pumping it twice. You don't need a generator. You just have water waiting for you. That's exactly how most of the community water systems on the island work. We've got storage tanks, something more than 80 feet above you.
How do you build that to survive a 7.0 earthquake?
I'll show you, because we've done it. Okay. So this is another device I found that was really, really clever. So this is a full-time, permanent wellhead. Okay? So it's fully sealed, it can sit there the whole time, but if you don't have the power to the well, you don't have the generator, you've got access to the manual way of doing it. Okay? Now, this will work on a well that's like 80 feet deep. The water is 80 feet down. More than that, it's not, it says it's not designed for that, okay? Because that's a lot of work to be lifting water, okay? But I thought it was a really clever invention. I question what this guy's actually doing with the precious water he's trying to pump out of his well, but he's missing the bowl, but, you know, he's got it. Okay. All right, so I'm going to switch gears. After trying hard to encourage you to prepare for yourself, now I want to give you some tools to go home to your own water systems and go, how prepared are we to survive something? How soon will it be that we'll have water back? What kind of redundancies do you have in your system? So I'm going to speak to the preparedness that we have done, but hopefully it stimulates questions about how others can follow suit. So the first question is, where does your water come from in your water system? So redundancy is really important, you know. And if you have a single source, then you're a little bit more vulnerable to systems that have multiple sources, okay? So in Eastsound, we have 7 different wells that are all production ready. And we have also a surface water facility as well. So multiple sources. I'll demonstrate some of the benefits of that. The next question is, how much storage does the system have? How many days can the system survive without new water refreshing the system? So in the village, we have 1 million gallons of water stored. Okay? And we don't use more than, 3 or 4 million gallons in a month system-wide. So that's weeks of emergency water potentially stored, if we can get it to you. The fact that we also split that storage up into 2 separate tanks. So if one of the tanks fails, or how the water gets from that tank to you is compromised, it can potentially get to you by an alternative route. Now, earthquake run, you asked about that. So this is the latest tank that we built in View Haven. It was built to seismic standards of over 8, okay? The walls of that concrete tank are 18 inches thick. The volume of steel that's in it is unbelievable, okay? We also built that tank with several interesting new features. One of them is that there are 2 drawdown pipes inside. One of them is up here at the 6-foot level, and one of them's at the very bottom. And the one we're using every day is the one at 6 foot. So if there's a huge fissure in the road and the water main breaks next to that tank, the water's going to start drawing out. Now the tank's going to pick up the phone and it's going to call me and it's going to tell me that's happening. But it's still happening. But if it gets drawn down to that 6-foot level, it stops drawing water and it waits until an operator shows up and opens the lower pipe, and then the rest of that water is available to return to service after we've responded and repaired whatever compromised getting the water from the tank to you, okay? Another interesting thing we did, this was a $5,000 ad. At the bottom of this tank, where it connects to the water main, which is one of the areas that's most susceptible when you've got an earthquake and you're looking at seismic shifts. Because the pipe might want to move, the tank isn't going to want to move. There's a device on the bottom of that made out of ductile iron that can expand 18 inches this way and 18 inches this way. So if the tank ever offsets, it's not broken away from the distribution system, okay? Then the second part to that is that in the shed that was built on top of these pipes, we pump some to this. There's an automatic transfer switch and a propane powered generator, and the power goes out, nobody's out of water for 2 seconds. Okay, so when I said calling home, this is a feature my friend Barry actually helped me install in all of our facilities, where this has a transducer. It measures the depth of water in the tanks. We get a call in every 2 minutes, and we set the alarm to that, to whenever it draws down below this level, it calls and we can come out and we can shut it down. Okay, and the guys monitor that on their cell phones. Okay. A backup power at every single one of our production facilities. Okay. This is the surface water dam. All of the big water systems on Orcas depend on surface water, okay? That surface water is held in its body by dams, okay? There's a dam on Cascade Lake, there's a dam on Mountain Lake, there's a dam, 4 dams on Purdue, you know? And so what's the integrity of those structures, okay? So we have worked with engineers to monitor our dam facilities. We have surveyed the tops of all of them, and we go back and have them resurveyed on a 5-year interval to make sure that there has been no movement or compromise in the dam during the times. This is an often overlooked concept, but when the big one comes, the compromise to the water systems will be in our distribution system, the pipes in the ground. Okay. Now the material of those pipes is really important. You know, the walls of the pipes that we're putting in, paying extra for, are 3/4 of an inch thick in a 6-inch size. Most of the water mains on Orcas that aren't in the bigger systems are PVC Schedule 40 with 1/8 inch thick walls. Okay. But there'll be compromises to multiple people. The key is can you isolate that leak in a hurry before your storage is gone, okay? And so with our system, and best practices with water systems, is to install a valve in the water main at intervals of 800 or 1,000 feet. So that when there's a break, we go to a valve on one side and a valve on the other side, and sorry, Joe, you're in the middle of that, you're out of water. There you go. See, Joe's got a plan. Okay. So, another concept that's important to water systems and their resiliency is looping. And Apalco has this same benefit. The idea is we want to get your water to you in a number of different ways. So, because there are 2 storage tanks in the village center, because there are different sources all over the town that have backup power to you, we could shut down lots of water mains in 1,000-foot increments and still get water to the vast majority of our members. Okay? Because water comes into town through each of those blue arrows. So if one of them's gone, it doesn't matter. You got water still. Okay? You'll find most other systems are linear in nature. And one break somewhere along the line means everybody who's downstream of that line is potentially going to be out of water until the situation is resolved. Okay? The second thing well-prepared water systems do is, for the case with Joe, where his section of water main is out of service, the water system should have an above-ground plan to develop temporary service that we don't need excavation equipment for, that we can just go to and do ourselves. So we have 1,300 feet of temporary service lines, and this is an example of it, the white pipe running through the picture, and then the blue line, which we have connected to that's going right straight to somebody's meter. And we pull their meter out, and we hook up the temporary line, and they're back in water.
So that white line is bypassing the break in the line?
That white line has been tapped into a good spot in the main, uphill of the isolation valve that shut down the section of main that's compromised. And then this line will run from the rest of the way. So we can plug these into blow-offs, we could plug them into fire hydrants, we could expose the main and tap into it. We could tap into let's say Paul lives in the area right next to where the break was, but he's still got water. I could tap into Paul's meter, and I could feed this emergency service line above ground to everybody else downstream. And Paul would be nice enough to let us do that. If we can't get to a customer or an area that we're working on, we have the ability to truck water to that location. So we've built an emergency water tank that is ready to be hooked up to one of our trucks and delivered it. We could put it in the village green and let people take it. We could bring it to, again, the neighborhood where Joe's at and let him have that access to that water, and we haul it back and fill it back up again, whatever. So